Well, we've got Alonzo Richardson with us, who's one of the hosts of the Backlook Cinema podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Now, can you just describe to people who might not be familiar with your podcast what the basic idea of it is?
So the basic idea is that it is a movie podcast. We talk about movies, but specifically, we talk about movies that I loved when I was. It's my son is like in his 20s, so he's
Yeah.
like 24.
Mm.
So there are some old movies that he's never seen before.
Yeah.
These are some great movies. These are movies that were very popular when back in the day, and I love them very much. Just like my brothers and my cousins, we all love these movies. So I wanted to share these movies with my son and get his impressions on them. And we talk about that on the podcast.
Yeah, and I guess it's quite interesting. You'd get different perspectives between you and your son because you can approach it from different angles. Your son might see a film as really old and weird, whereas to you, it's still fresh.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, the conceit of the show is that, like in the first episode, I explained that my son is like my clone. He and we have very similar personalities.
Mhm.
We like a lot of the same things. So like he likes sci-fi movies, I like sci-fi movies, but some of those movies may differ.
Mm.
But some of the movies don't age well. So some of the movies are a lot slower than I remember. and and so it's like I'm looking at it with nostalgia, or I'm remembering with nostalgia some of these movies I haven't seen in ages.
Yeah.
So when I look at them again, I'm like, oh yeah, this didn't age well at all.
Mm.
And he'll catch it. He'll catch it when a movie doesn't age well.
Yeah. And as well as having each other on the show, you sometimes like to bring on some interesting guests, right?
Absolutely. We were graced with your presence on our show last week, and we were so happy to have you. And because you and Zach are the same age or similar ages, you both had very similar perceptions of the movie we watched. So we watched Backdraft last week, and you both believe that the fire effect was computer animation or something like that, and they were all practical effects. They're all real. They used real fire, and because you guys are so used to computers doing all the work that you didn't actually realize that they didn't have that tech back in the 1990s, at least not with fire.
The thing is, it did look so fake in some parts, so I mean, they might as well have used paper mache or something. Maybe that would look more realistic.
Yeah, I think what they did, they had fire doing some strange things. So like they had this fire effect where the fire appeared to be crawling on the ground, and what they really did was that they set the ceiling on fire, and then they filmed it upside down to make it appear that it was the floor. They used tricks like that because they wanted to give fire a personality.
Yes.
So yeah.
And throughout the podcast's history, what do you think have been your favourite ones to talk about with your son?
Surprisingly, like when I first conceived in writer Mark Bernardin on his podcast, he has a podcast with Kevin Smith called Batman Beyond. And I don't know if it's through his tweets or through his conversation with Kevin that he talked about one of the things he did with his son during the pandemic was that they watched movies that he loved when he was growing up, and get his son's impressions on him, just like I'm doing with this podcast. So that's where I got the podcast from.
Yeah.
And I originally I thought I was going to get like the super heavy action movies that like with Jean-Claude Van Damme or Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I was just going to focus on those movies. But then I realized he also likes heavily dramatic movies. So actually some of my favorite movies have been the ones with strong drama, like heavy drama. Like one of the ones we watched was a movie called Lean on Me that starred Morgan Freeman, and it was a true life story of this hard-nosed high school principal. So we watched that one, and he was very impressed with that movie, and that's been one of my favorite movies. Also, another favorite is the movie Glory, about one of the very first Black regiments in the Civil War, and that was also something that he was very impressed about. Oops, sorry about that. I thought I turned the sound off.
Yeah. Well, I take it that you like to watch a variety of film genres then.
Oh yeah. I like. Oh, hold on a second. Let me fix this phone. Let me because it's making all sorts of noises now.
Mm.
All right, there we go. Hot on romance or
Yeah.
rom-coms. There are a couple of rom-coms that I liked when I was growing up, but I don't know if we're ever going to get to them in the show.
Yeah.
So pretty much everything else, like comedy, musicals, maybe even um action, obviously
Mm.
high drama, but we're gonna distance ourselves from romance.
Yeah. Maybe that's a good idea for the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in the future, what type of films do you think you're going to be doing? Have you got any ideas coming up?
Let's see. So we've just recorded, well, we just watched Conan the Barbarian.
Ooh.
So we're going to be recording that later on today.
Yeah.
Later on, we're supposed to be doing who is there? Big Trouble in Little China. That's
Ah.
one with Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
That film is surprisingly, that film was a flop, even though it
Mm.
got great ratings. It when they did the test audience for the movie, the test audience like gave it rave reviews,
Mm.
and but it wasn't marketed properly,
Ah.
so it totally flopped at the box office.
All right.
There's also a movie like Point Break, The Last Action Hero, an officer and a gentleman. So I'm just
Yeah.
basically just jumping up and down. And it's like an officer and a gentleman that basically rides the line of a romance. It's like
Yeah.
it veers close,
Mm.
but it doesn't actually get there.
Uh-huh.
And then one of my favorites is A Few Good Men, the
Oh,
high
yeah.
drama. I don't think he's seen those.
Mm.
But A Few Good Men has been memed so many times that how could we not do that movie?
Yeah, absolutely. You'll definitely know the famous line from that one.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, where are we able to check out the podcast if we want to listen to it?
Well, if you want to listen to this show, you can basically find it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or anywhere that you find your podcasts. You can go to our website at backlookcinema.com,
Mm.
and that has all of our episodes on that website.
Yeah.
So if you enjoy listening to podcasts, you can find our show just about anywhere.
Mm. Yeah. And finally, how did you get that t-shirt made? Because I like it.
Oh, you can see this?
Yeah.
I didn't know the camera was going to catch this. I actually have a store at teespring.com.
Ah.
So you can actually go to our website, click on the Teespring link, and it'll link you directly to the Teespring store. You can browse around. We have t-shirts, we have mugs, we have we don't have leggings yet, but leggings are coming soon. We have we have all kinds of basically t-shirts and hoodies that you can get at that site.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show today. It's been great to have you here.
Oh, it's great to be here.